Welcome to coverage of the semifinals here at Grand Prix Richmond. Maria Bartholdi in the booth with Jacob Van Lunen. Here we have Michael Baranecki versus Martin Dang. And we've gotten a good look at Martin Dang's deck. And here it comes, JVL, Bloodlust Insider. Turn
I'm going to
one.
die. This is it.
I hope this card carries him to victory just to see the salt fly here in the booth. There you see a look at Bloodlust Insider, a 1/1 for a single red mana. Tap it to give target creature haste until end of turn. Doesn't match up too well against a doomed Dissenter, though.
Yeah, to victory, to glory, to eternity. Oh, my goodness.
We
He just sounds like somebody who I wouldn't like, you know? It's like...
We got a peek at Baranecki's deck as well earlier. We happen to know that he has some pretty spicy cards in it, including Bantu the Glorified, as well as Liliana Death's Mastery.
And those are both really good cards.
Whoa! All right. Both cards going down thanks to a well-timed Splendid Agony from Michael.
I like it. I'm in. Yeah, Splendid Agony is a really powerful card like that when you can use it as a combat trick. Martin thought he was completely safe, and that card was just complete and total blowout. That Splendid Agony is going to be really good in this matchup for Michael Baranecki. Martin has a lot of one-toughness creatures.
Here's an Emberhorn Minotaur for Martin Dang. And a Pitiless Vizier hits the table for Michael. Hitting the red zone.
Yeah, I like being aggressive here. You want to trade blows pretty often.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this format being about racing and being about continuing to pressure your opponent versus trading off creatures.
Yeah, and if you're trading blows, you want to get the first crack, and that's what Michael Baranecki is doing right now.
And here's a Warfire Javelineer hitting the table. Only has the ability to deal 1 damage at this point, thanks to the Splendid Agony in his graveyard.
But the nice part there is that Michael Baranecki is continuing to advance his board state and is kind of putting Martin on the back foot. And Martin already chose not to block on that last turn, so I don't think he's going to choose to block now. And I think with a deck like Martin's, if you're doing things like first or second picking a Bloodlust Insider and third picking a Brute Strength, if you start blocking, you're losing.
Right.
So...
All right, here we see an Initiate's Companion suited up with a Cartouche of Zeal. Javelineer cannot block this turn. Both of Martin's creatures rumble.
Yeah, so Martin getting in now for, if he's not exerting, that's 8 damage. That's a lot already. He's tied things up right now. And he says, okay, if you want to race, then I want to race. And he's really good at racing with this deck.
Both players down to 12. Martin plays a Hooded Brawler, passes a turn.
Wow, what a turn for Martin there. It was pretty impressive. Able to use 6 mana worth of cards with 5 lands. Able to punch through 8 damage through a blocker. Just it's pretty hard to imagine things going any better.
In comes the Pitiless Vizier for Michael, which is never a creature you're too interested in blocking.
Yeah, it's hard to block that creature when it's, threatening to become indestructible at a whim.
Martin once again sending all of his creatures into the red zone, exerting both the Hooded Brawler to give it 5 power, as well as the Emberhorn Minotaur to give it +1/+1 in Menace.
The interesting thing here is that Michael Baranecki actually has 8 points of power on the board, so if he were somehow able to survive here and Martin didn't have a creature and he didn't have to use any blocks, then he could kill him the swing back. Unfortunately for him, it does not look like that's going to happen. So he's going to line up some blocks here. Both the Emberhorn Minotaur and the Hooded Brawler are exerted, so he may not have to worry about those until the following turn. So he might just want to chump one of those exerted creatures and trade with the Initiate's Companion and then hope to win through a few attacks from his Pitiless Vizier.
And Martin's deck is doing exactly what the red-green deck wants to do in this format, which is exert and beat down, and he's got plenty of tricks to back it up as well.
Yeah, and we're seeing just how powerful these exert creatures really are when you're trying to be the aggressor in these games.
Yeah, 3 mana for a 5-power creature when you're on the attack. Michael lines up some blocks. A splendid agony to save his pitiless vizier here. Or sorry, not splendid agony. Supernatural strength, stamina.
Yeah, and this is really interesting too because of the interaction between the supernatural stamina and the merciless, or the, I'm sorry,
Pitiless vizier.
no, the Warfire Javelinier. So the Warfire Javelinier is going to die here, and then it will come back, and when it comes back, it deals damage.
Oh,
and
look at that.
you know, if Martin had chosen to use some type of pump spell, then he could have used the Warfire Javelinier returning to play to finish off the creature.
Michael drops to 7. Martin passes the turn back. Michael continuing to rumble on in just as Martin Dang is. Warfire Javelinier and the Vizier getting in.
And here, oh wow, that's 7 damage. He's untapping this Ember Minotaur. And
Oh,
oh, but
final
reward
reward.
has something to say about that. And it looks like Michael Baraniecki is going to take the first game here from Martin Dang.
That final reward saved his life. Michael Baranecki takes the first game over Martin Dang here in the semifinals. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more Magic momentarily. Coverage of Grand Prix Richmond. Maria Bartholdi in the booth alongside Jacob Van Lunen. Michael Baranecki versus Martin Dang here in the semifinals. Michael up a game. We're going to take a look in here at Eli Cassis and Evan Esposito.
Yeah, I've never seen Angler Drake, one of the better uncommons in the set.
We have an Baleful Amit on the table for Evan and a Trial of Ambition. Ely deciding to get in there with the Angler Drake.
Yeah, needs to win the game eventually.
Yeah, Evan at 25 life, thanks to that Amit, I can only assume.
And the Avon Initiate there, ready to block and trade with Baleful Amit.
Ely on a white-blue deck, which traditionally favors flyers and embalm in Amonkhet. Evan playing some red-black, usually a very aggressive build.
Yeah, red-black is one of the better decks in the format.
Ooh, is that a Plague Belcher? It certainly is.
Is a Plague Belcher.
And we have a Dread Wanderer here as well.
Yeah, now because that Dread Wanderer is dying, the Plague Belcher is going to, you know, ping Ely for a single point of damage. And also, it's a 5/4 menace, which is kind of
supernatural stamina. Keeping the Amit alive versus that Aven Initiate.
It looks like Evan's got it all here.
Goes up to 27 life, knocks Ely down to 10.
Yeah, Ely with only one card in hand before he draws that. He found a nice one, though. The first match is back up. We could go check out who's winning over there.
What did Ely draw?
It looks like he drew an Aven Wind Guide there, and yeah, it's gonna help him kind of stabilize a bit, but he's at a low life total. Things are rough for him. I think the first match is actually going again. Maybe we should jump back over there.
All right, let's take a look back at our feature match here. Michael versus Martin Dang. Just a few turns in, we have a Minotaur Sure Shot on the table for Baranecki. Martin Dang having to discard, it looks like, Spidery Grasp. In comes the Sure Shot.
Yeah, Martin failing to find the lands he needs, and Michael Baranecki is just curving out properly here.
Continuing to apply pressure with that Emberhorn Minotaur.
Yeah, Emberhorn Minotaur, we've talked about it before, but as far as 4-drops go in this format, it's, just top tier power level.
Ornery Kudu is a play for Martin Dang. Has to put the counter on itself. And Electrify will take it down. Smash.
Yeah, the hits keep on coming here. Martin all the way down to 12 now. A 2-turn clock coming from the other direction. And the thing is that, Martin's going to need to be blocking to get himself back into this game. And, if he
his deck's not really
blocking,
set up for that.
Yeah, he's not in a good spot if he starts blocking. He's, a Bloodlust Insider deck.
Right here we have a Defiant Great Maw just played as a 2/3. It's got a Cartouche of Zeal. Gives it a little more power and toughness. But Martin definitely wants to be the beatdown.
Yeah, I think Michael could still, trade with either of these creatures. The Emberhorn Minotaur could easily get past by exerting and put Martin down to 7 life.
And here they come.
Yeah. Michael choosing not to exert here. Happily take the 2-for-1.
Yeah. Take your 2-for-1s when you can get them, even though the call of extra damage is sometimes too precious to resist.
And he may even have a trick that he's ready to get Martin with if Martin does decide to block here. Yep.
Splendid Agony it is. Down goes the Hippo.
Yeah, so getting in for 3 with the Minotaur Sure Shot by using its activated ability, and even has something to do with that last mana.
Festering Mummy. Martin Dang drops to 9 life. Baranecki's still at 20. Martin Dang's really got to pull something together here, or...
Yeah, he drew a couple lands in a row, which is what he needed to do to kind of get his way back into the game. The problem is that, the majority of the cards in his deck are really set up to attack, and when he's on the back foot, it's just not a good spot for him. Michael, however, is really flooded from the looks of things, so he's going to have to win the game with what he has on the board, and it's a tall order.
Martin plays a copy of True Heart Twins, which, of course, better on the attack as it's able to exert itself to give your team +1/+0, or if any creature is exerted for that matter. Right now, it's back on D.
Yeah, so Michael definitely wants to keep attacking. It's right now if he attacks with both of these creatures, or with all of his creatures, it is lethal. Martin will have to block something, so he's going to block the Minotaur Sure Shot. At which point, 2 pumps is going to create a trade there, and suddenly Martin's at just 3 life.
Wow. Another play for Michael here. His own Baleful Amet, putting a counter on the Minotaur. Passes back to Martin.
Yeah, and that Minotaur, I mean, it's still lethal, even with that -1/-1 counter on it. So Michael, very aware that it doesn't really make a difference, and just happy to have more power on the life-linking creature that can attack on the following turn.
Here's a blazing volley to take down the festering mummy.
Yeah, it's a May ability.
Ooh, that's pretty nice. That's a card that can help you out there. Deem worthy, taking down the Amit.
Yeah, Martin's going to need 2 blockers next turn to deal with this Minotaur that has Menace, though. So
Michael passed the turn right back.
looks like Michael just has 2 lands in hand. So Martin could very easily get back into this game. I mean, Michael's drawn 9 lands, and he's only drawn 6 spells. So it's the classic type of like lack of mana versus too much mana. If the person who has a lack of mana draws out of it first, they're usually very heavily favored.
Here comes a Minotaur exerted. And that is the match. Michael Baranecki, 2-0 over Martin Dang. Michael advances to the finals here at Grand Prix Richmond.
Yeah, and his deck was really exciting in round 1 when we had seen him finish off his opponent. He had a Liliana in play. It was kind of exciting.
Yes.
Death's Majesty herself,
And Bantu.
Oh, yeah, he had Bantu also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lots of mythic rares.
Yeah, his deck's pretty cool.
And I haven't seen many decks where Bantu is really that great, but he has 3 copies of Doom Dissenter, and he has like a Festering Mummy and whatnot. He's got a lot of interesting things going on that he can use to make that card quite powerful.
All right, let's check back in here. The game between Ely Cassis and Evan Esposito. We can see that it is still the same game that we checked on earlier. A Drakehaven in play for Ely. Ooh, that's exciting.
That is quite exciting.
Along with Kefnet's Monument, which with a Drakehaven is a pretty interesting synergy.
I think Kevnet's is actually the one that keeps things tapped. And but you're right, he can then chump block and keep the best threat on Evan's side of the board tapped for long periods of time now.
Evan, meanwhile, coming in with his army of zombies, mummies. There you see a look at Kefnet's Monument. Whenever you cast a creature spell, target creature an opponent controls doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Angler Drake jumps in front of the Festering Mummy there.
Yeah, only
Now a 3/3 flyer.
1 point of life remaining now for Ely.
Woohoo! Evan at 31. Yeah. He gained a lot of life off that Amit over the course of this game.
Ely going to start taking some chunks out of that 31-point life total. Got to get his opponent dead before he mills himself to death.
In comes the Drake. Ooh. What is Ely doing here? Is it Embalm?
Yeah, I believe he's embalming an Aven Wind Guide right now.
Aven Wind Guide, just really solid card that you want in any blue-white deck. Here's a look at it on your screen. Flying Vigilance. Creature tokens you control have Flying and Vigilance. Embalm for 6.
Yeah, one thing I really like about Aven Wind Guide here, too, is that the tokens that Ely makes off of Drakehaven, they can be attacking and still be on defense. So if Evan does something crazy, like creates like a hasty guy or makes it so some number of Ely's guys can't block, once Ely gets that Drakehaven going, those Drakes are going to be playing offense and defense at the same time.
There we see Dread Wanderer. A little 2/1, but it comes back from the dead for 2 and a black. If you have 1 or fewer cards in hand. Copy of Splendid Agony in Evan's hand at the moment. A Zombie Jackal. Blocked by the Aven Wind Guide, and here's Splendid Agony to finish off the Wind Guide for good and put another counter on that Drake. And here he comes back again.
The Angler Drake getting smaller and smaller as time goes on.
Angler Drake's now just a Drake like it came from Drakehaven.
Yeah. Significantly less impressive Drake than we're used to seeing.
Angler Drake, though, one of your favorite cards in the set, JVL.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a 4/4 flyer. You don't have to take an entire turn away from the opponent.
All right, Cartouche of Knowledge is a play for Ely.
Oh, wow. And that's
He's going to pick up
great.
his trial. Ooh, here we go. When you're at 1 life, get to draw some cards. One
know-
card off the Cartouche.
Yeah, the other thing that's nice, though, is when he plays this trial, he's going to have to discard a card, which means he can trigger that Drake Haven, too.
All right, draw 3. Drake, Angler Drake back up to 3 power thanks to the Cartouche. Gonna discard a land, activate the Drake Haven, make it 2/2 Drake. I love Drake Haven.
The Drake Haven's so good when you get it going. And there, that turn, Ely just refilled his hand. You know, he has tons of action again. And, you know, he drew a card off the Cartouche of Knowledge, replacing itself. Then he was able to go up a card with the Trial of Knowledge, and by discarding that irrelevant land, he also was able to produce that Drake. It's just exactly what he wanted to be doing.
Here's a Lord of the Accursed, which could help out this zombie jackal by giving it menace starting next turn.
Yeah, that's, you know, a pretty powerful card to have in that spot, because here Ely thought that he just had a, you know, blocker that was holding down the fort quite nicely, and that was no longer the case thanks to this Lord of the Accursed. The other thing that's scary now is that the Lord of the Accursed can give the Dread Wanderer menace, so now Ely's going to have to start leaving back multiple blockers.
He did draw a bunch of new cards recently. Here he's going to cycle off of his Winged Shepherd to draw a card, make a Drake. Pretty good deal.
Yeah. He's got to be happy about that.
That's why Drake Haven is so great. It makes your cycling where you're already like, oh, this is a fine deal, into a really good deal.
Yeah. And we see Winged Shepherd. He has plenty of mana to cast it, and instead chooses to cycle it here. Now I mean, it's 2 mana to draw a card and make it 2/2, which is
Yeah,
certainly a
JVL's
better
off
deal.
this card.
Yeah, I'll still play it in most of my white decks. I think it's without a doubt the weakest of the cycle.
In come the Angler Drake and the regular Drake, chipping away at Evan's life total. Follow-up play here of River Serpent.
And that's a nice one because, you know, with that Dread Wanderer not able to untap, he doesn't really have to worry about Evan giving it menace and being able to attack in for some large amount of damage.
And Heckma Sentinels is the follow-up play.
Wow, so lots of Cycling Matters cards here for Ely Cassis, in addition to a lot of Embalm. He has a blue-white deck that looks pretty impressive.
It looks like Evan's sitting on a pair of lands in his hand. That Dread Wanderer going to remain tapped thanks to Kefnet's Monument. Just has to pass the turn back.
And Ely looks to be firmly in the driver's seat here as they're approaching the end game. And Evan may have 23 life to Ely's 1, but 1 is all you need. And, you know, your life total is a resource in Magic, and if you can leverage that correctly, it's often a winning recipe. The thing that's scary for Ely, however, is that, you know, there are cards that deal damage directly to one's face.
Yes.
And
they're in red usually.
yeah, they're
That's
usually
what
red
Evan's
and
playing.
or black. So
Let's take a look here at Evan Esposito's deck list.
yeah, let's try to find out what he could have to get back into this game. So he does have 2 copies of Manticore of the Gauntlet in his deck. So
Ely's like, I've got to get in there right now.
Ely's got to end this quick. We don't know if he's played either of them yet, but those could definitely end the game very quickly.
Ely swinging in for a huge attack here, dropping Evan all the way down to 11. A Shimmer Scale Drake is the follow-up play, keeping that Dread Wanderer tapped down. I feel like he must have another cycling card. But maybe he's just that brave.
Yeah, I think that the reason he might play the Drake over cycling it is because he wants to keep the Dread Wanderer tapped using the blue monument here.
All right, Evan has to pass the turn back. Ely Cassis may be working his way back into this game from 1 life.
Yeah, pretty impressive. And I think this is a lethal attack
Here comes the team.
Yeah. And he blocks this 5, and then... No, it puts him at 1, I think.
Yep, that's 10.
So if he has a cycle and or some way to discard a card, then it's lethal. However,
Yes, because of the ability on the Heckma Sentinels.
yeah.
Evan down to 1. Casting a Sacred Cat. Stay tapped, please.
Yeah. And this is yeah, I like
Yes, Manticore of the Gauntlet is the card that would win him the game on the spot right now.
Yeah, he drew a really nice one in Final Reward, but that's not going to be good enough to get him back into this game, and it looks like we're on to game 2 here.
Evan Esposito scoops him up. Ely Cassis taking game 1 in this match versus Evan Esposito.
See, I like seeing a deck like Ely's win games and matches. I mean, he's drafted a much more controlling deck that plays a much slower game, and the narrative that we've had thus far in top 8, and the narrative after the Grand Prix in Beijing is that these hyper aggressive decks, these Bloodlust Insiders, these Cartouche of Zeals, that these are the cards that you're supposed to be drafting in order to be successful in this format. And Ely, he's not willing to abide by those rules. Instead, he's drafting this controlling blue-white deck where he's grinding an advantage out slowly over the course of a game. And, he's playing cards like Blue Monument to keep his opponent's creatures tapped. Like, he's gone deep. And one of the things that I love about this format is these cards that, might be presumably unplayable to a lot of other people. Those cards are playable in certain decks. And that's what makes really great players and really great deck builders excel in this format, is that you can find things that might not otherwise seem playable and make them into great decks.
All right, we're going to take a brief break before we come back to see game 2 of this match. Coverage of Grand Prix Richmond. Maria Bartholdi in the booth alongside Jacob Van Lunen. On to game 2 here between Ely Cassis and Evan Esposito. Ely up a game currently with his blue-white Flyers deck. Evan playing a red-black, much more aggressive deck.
Yeah, Ely's deck's really cool. He has Drake Haven, he has Angler Drake, he's playing a Blue Monument. Like, this is what I want to see do well. I want the world to know that this draft format has not been solved, that there's no secret formula to victory. No, you need to be creative. You need to be a deck builder. You need to have heart like Ely Cassis.
And both players, by the way, notably, do have access to each other's deck lists in the top 8 here. So between games are able to look at what their opponents might be potentially sideboarding against them.
Yeah, and I mean, that definitely makes a big difference, knowing what tricks to play around. And it increases and decreases the value of, certain types of combat tricks and or answers to those combat tricks.
Both of these players playing for a spot in the finals here as they take a look at their opening hands.
Evan pointing out the Manticore of the Gauntlet. Like, he was at 1. 1.
Oh, where were you when I needed you, buddy? Evan trying to decide here. I don't think I saw there is that a dual land I see in his hand? All right, they both kept. Evan kicks things off with a swamp. Ely, Sacred Cat. Final reward was a draw for Evan.
Sacred Cat's a card that in these slower, more controlling decks I've been pretty impressed with. I really like discarding Sacred Cats to Trial of Knowledge. That's something that I've had a lot of success doing in the early stages of the draft format.
Sacred Cat might not look like much, except a cute cat, but has definite synergies with other cards in this format. Oh, Evan's going to cycle away his Canyon Sloth.
Yeah, I mean, Sacred Cat, if you get it down early and it's able to get in a few hits, it really is, pretty strong in that regard. The other thing that's nice about it is that it makes racing situations more difficult for your opponent. It's really good at chump blocking. So if your opponent has, not many cards like Cartouche of Strength and a lot of cards like Scale Behemoth, you get 2 chump blocks out of it without having to devote a lot of mana to that while you're developing in the air with flyers. I think it's just at its best in these blue-white decks.
Splendid Agony takes down Ely's Fan Bearer. He's going to get in there. Another hit with the Kitty Cat. Plays a Heckma Sentinels.
I also want to know where this cat got the necklace. Maybe Ketcher gave it to the cat?
Maybe.
That's what I'd like to believe.
They probably sell them at Amonkhet Petco or something like that.
And they must have a lot of gold there. Just give it to cats.
That cat looks fly. In it comes, along with the Sentinels, Aven Wind Guide. Follow-up play here from Ely, which is exactly what you want in the blue-white deck.
Ely curving out here. The card he played on the second turn had to eat something that cost 3 mana from Evan. Evan only with 1 color of mana here.
Yeah, and he cycled away his dual land. Just a Dread Wanderer in play for Evan.
And Dread Wanderer, not the most impressive threat of all.
No.
Especially when you've got a whole bunch of cards stranded in your hand, then you can't even trade it as you'd like to.
Evan will be able to cast a final reward. He does have 5 mana, but he's going to cast here instead Wasteland Scorpion, as killing any of those things doesn't feel too great right now, given that the Aven Wind Guide has Embalm.
Yeah, Final Reward does exile the creature, which is good against the Embalm mechanic. However, I think he might have some type of other trick in his hand. Maybe that would be the main reason that he would play the Scorpion there instead of playing the Final Reward on the Aven Wind Guide. Even so, it's surprising to me that he cycled that red land when he didn't have other red mana.
Yeah, he must have.
Yeah, he must have needed action. Maybe he kept like a 5-lander or something. And
here's Drakehaven. I think that's a famous line from The Shining.
Yeah, I mean, Drakehaven, the fact that Ely has that Drakehaven in play and that he's not under a lot of pressure, that he's actually like winning the race on board even without the Drakehaven, that's just bodes terrible, terrible news for Evan Esposito, because now Ely's able to just grind out this like casual card advantage while also just advancing his state on the board. And he doesn't even have to tap the Drakes to attack with them thanks to the Aven Wind Guide. So he can play offense while also playing defense. And, Evan's going to be spending cards to get things off the table, where Ely just can do whatever he wants at, the cost of only mana and not necessarily a card economy.
Evan does, in fact, cast Final Reward on the Aven Wind Guide.
Drakehaven's such a cool card. The Cycling Matters cards, cards like Astral Slide and Lightning Rift, have been some of the most popular cards in Magic's history. And the fact that you now have access to a card like Drakehaven, another powerful card with that type of effect, it's exciting. This is a card that makes me want to build a deck.
Absolutely.
I saw this card and I was like, I want to build with this card. And I think a lot of people felt the same way. So.
Oh, the first time I got in draft, I built a Drakehaven deck.
Of course. How do you not? If you open a Drakehaven, you don't try to build around it, you have no soul.
Yeah, build around cards, notably ones that players just love to see in draft formats. Drakehaven, one of my favorites I've seen in a long time.
Absolutely.
No play from Ely on his turn. 5 mana available. Let's see if it doesn't look like Evan has found his second color of mana yet. Just has to say go.
Yeah, so maybe his hand's just full of combat tricks, and Ely, refusing to give him an opportunity to do anything with those.
Just cycles away the Shimmer Scale Drake for a Drake and a card. Pretty good deal.
Yeah, and now Ely can just start, cracking away in the air. And the other thing is, if Ely has, cards that are interactive to play on his opponent's turn, then it's just going to be a nightmare for Evan because Ely will never really even have to tap mana.
There's the Angler Drake is going to send that Wasteland Scorpion back to Evan's hand. And in come the Heckma Sentinels and the Drake.
So we might see one of those tricks that Evan had in hand.
Oh, there it is. Supernatural Stamina. And Splendid Agony to take down the Drake token. Supernatural Stamina, kind of a strange play on a Dread Wanderer, but wanted to get those Sentinels out of the way.
Yeah, now one thing that's worth noting, too, is that, Ely sees that Evan is starved for red mana, that he doesn't have his second color, and he returned to Wasteland Scorpion. It cycles and also just basically does nothing on the board to Evan's hand. So now Evan can maybe use that card to find another red mana. Of course, Ely so far in the lead right now that if Evan's spending 2 mana just to cycle on his turn, that's a pretty good spot for Ely to be in because he has 4 power flying in the air, and that's potentially going to grow a lot in the coming turns thanks to his Drakehaven.
In comes Dread Wanderer for 2. Ely gained some life over the course of this game thanks to that Sacred Cat. Goes down to 21. Evan Esposito at 13.
And Ely's going to be happy trading hits back and forth with the Dread Wanderer because, he'll be, having 2-point life swings as the Dread Wanderer would, but he's actually winning the race right now. He knows that Evan has cards that match up well on the other end, but he may just be saving that body to block something bigger.
And there is a Miasmic Mummy forcing Ely to discard. Evan discards as well and discards a Wasteland Scorpion. He is holding on to that Manticore of the Gauntlet. In comes Baleful Amit. Question is, what do you put the counter on? Yep, Dread Wanderer will go to the bin.
I think it's interesting there is that Ely, had all his mana tapped. If he had an open mana, when Evan played that Miasmic Mummy, Ely would have been able to trigger his Drakehaven.
Ely's going to attack for 4 here after playing Those Who Serve. A nice little 2/4 for 3. And one of our favorite 2-drops, Gustwalker.
Yeah, Gustwalker. I think it's the best 2-mana common in the set, 2-mana common creature in the set. And, we know how important 2-drops are in this format.
There's a look at Those Who Serve, which quite good at blocking. 2/4 for 3 mana is pretty good stats.
Yeah, 2/4 for 3 is a pretty good deal. In this format, it's not quite as good at blocking as it might be in other formats because of the exert mechanic, but the fact that it's a zombie means it sees play in a lot of different decks. And against, more aggressive decks that aren't exerting it much, particularly red-black, Those Who Serve really shines as a defensive creature too.
Ely attacks with his Gustwalker as well as his Angler Drake, exerting the Gustwalker to send it up into the air, give it +1/+1.
Yeah, the nice thing about the Baleful Amit here on Evan's side of the table is that, it's so good at racing situations. So
Even though he's at 2.
he's at 2, but he can, if he's able to draw the right cards, he'll be able to, find his way back into this game. And he's at least probably going to be able to buy himself another turn at least here. So
In comes the Amit. Ely's going to double block. There's Those Who Serve. Takes the hit. Evan's still off his second color of mana.
yeah, and it looks like he does have a Manticore of the Gauntlet and a Magma Spray in hand, so it's hurting him quite a bit right now.
Angler Drake coming in for another 4. Tawcrop Skirmisher hits the table for Ely. Evan's like, be there. Well, there's the mountain. But
It seems like it may be a little late at this point.
too little, too late. Ely has a strong air game.
Yes, he does. His airness.
Magma Spray is going to hit the Gustwalker. Back comes the Dread Wanderer. Passes the turn back. Eli's like, all right, I
All
win.
right, I'll attack you with this Angler Drake. Is that good?
And there's the
is,
handshake.
yes.
Eli Cassis, 2-0 over Evan Esposito. Makes it into the finals. It'll be Michael Baranecki versus Eli Cassis here at Grand Prix Richmond. You get to see a blue-white Flyers deck with Drake Haven making all
my
the way to the
goodness.
finals.
That's exactly what I want to see. Get this Bloodlust Insider stuff out of my face.
And you're going to see
I want to see Drake
Liliana.
Havens. I want to see Liliana.
Yeah, and you're going to see that coming up in the finals here after these messages.